Pháp dương vô thượng tôn, tam giới vô lực thập thiên nhân chi đạo, sư tử sanh chi từ phù. Nhất niệm quy năng diệt tam kiệt, sướng dương nhược tán thán, ức kiếp mạt năng tầng.
Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. With the beginning of every lecture, we pay respect and homage to our great teacher, the Buddha. Today is truly a day of great blessing, for we gather here to learn in English from one of the great Mahayana Sutra, Lăng Già Tâm Ấn, or in English, the Lankavatara Sutra. Through the blessing of our founder and also the 98th Zen Patriarch, Sư Tổ Thanh Tịnh Hải Tạng, and through the lecture of her grand disciple, Đại sư Pháp Vân, we are blessed to have a chance to open our minds and absorb the wisdom of our Buddha, Thích Ca Mâu Ni, or Sakyamuni. The title of Đại sư refers to a great master who is a teacher of both saints and humans. In this translation, we have decided not to translate into English the names of all the characters involved, but maintain the Vietnamese names that were used by Đại sư Pháp Vân. We all know that at the beginning of the 6th century, the 28th Zen Patriarch, Bodhidharma, followed the advice of his teacher Bát Nhã Đà La and traveled a great distance from India to China to spread the Buddha's teaching. The task of a patriarch to rescue all beings went through many difficulties. The journey from India to China was not only through land, but through the ocean by boat as well. There was no modern traveling convenience like airplanes, trains, or high-speed ships. Once he reached China, he heard of King Lương Vũ Đế reputation as someone who supported the Sangha and who spent a lot of money to build hundreds of monasteries and supported tens of thousands of monks in those monasteries. He would often wear the monk's robe and lecture about the 10 virtues to his followers. There were even a time when he preached the 10 virtues so well that even the heavenly saints would pay homage to him by laying flowers around where he stood. Because of this, Bodhidharma would directly go to see the king to see if he could help spread the Buddha's teaching. But to his disappointment, after having Dharma talk with King Lương Vũ Đế, he realized that the king was not advanced and was still stuck in visible forms. And it would be very difficult for him to see his pure mind. As a result, Bodhidharma left Nanjing and headed toward the Shaolin Temple, which resides on the Tungsan mountain. Here he spent the next 9 years facing the mountain wall or sitting in deep meditation. At that time, Bodhidharma would also be known as Bích Quán Sa Môn or Bích Quán Hòa Thượng. At this temple, he accepted a lot of disciples, and one of those famous disciples was Huệ Khả Đại sư. One day, he decided to test the understanding of his students through Dharma dialogue. He concluded that Huệ Khả Đại sư would succeed him and said the following translated words: I came here with the intention of transmitting the Dharma to rescue all deluded beings. A flower blooms 5 petals, flowers and fruit bloom all over. After the test, Bodhidharma realized that his student Huekha was enlightened. He then passed down the official Buddha's alms bowl and the sutra Lăng-Già Tâm Ấn to him. He told Huekha Đại sư that this sutra is Phương Tiện Pháp Yếu, meaning that it should be used skillfully to help deluded practitioners find their way back to the original mind. This sutra could also help practitioners understand the Tathagata or the Buddha's mind. Huekha Đại sư accepted and eventually passed down to his successor, Tăng Sáng Đại sư, who then passed down to Đạo Tín Đại sư. But by the time it reached Hoàng Nhẫn Đại sư, the fifth patriarch, he read the Lăng-Già Tâm Ấn Sutra but did not understand its true meaning. Fortunately, through special coincidence, when the fifth patriarch read the Diamond Sutra, his mind opened up and became enlightened. From that point onward, he then suggested to his future disciple to use the Diamond Sutra as a guideline and as a source for the practice of the transmission of the mind. Lăng-Già Tâm Ấn Sutra slowly faded away from the world and was not passed down further. What a disappointment. What a disappointment, because this sutra has a lot of value. If you study this sutra, you will understand the body, speech, and thought consciousness. This sutra is an expedient and skillful way that can lead you toward pure mind consciousness. It is very difficult for an ordinary mind to evolve and reach the consciousness of no attachment or the no thought consciousness of the mind. But how to change layer by layer the forms into the formless? If you want to do this, then you need to have deep understanding of the cause of your consciousness, created by your body, speech, and thoughts. This is the reason today I am following the directive of my teacher, Sư Tổ Thanh Tịnh Hải Tạng, Patriarch 98th of the Phan Yin sect. It is part of the Zen lineage, which started from the first patriarch, Ca Diếp, and through the sixth patriarch, Huệ Năng, and disseminated further down to have 5 branches, the first one being Quy Ngưỡng, the second is Lâm Tế, the third is Tạo Động, the fourth is Văn Môn, and the fifth is Pháp Nhãn. I hold the title of Đại sư of the Zen monastery, Pháp Nhãn, under the direction and guidance of Sư Tổ Thanh Tịnh Hải Tạng. Because this monastery came through the official Zen lineage, Sư Tổ gave me permission to disseminate the teaching of the Sutra Lăng-Già Tâm Ấn, to explain its deep meaning and to guide all beings to understand this profound wisdom so that they can open or be receptive to their pure mind. In the past, in many monasteries, there were many students. For example, in the first Pháp Nhãn monastery, under the guidance of Sư Tổ Văn Ích, there were over thousands of disciples. Many attained enlightenment. In the Zen tradition, we do not emphasize the length of how long the disciple has been in the monastery. It doesn't matter if you have been here 20 years or more. The title is not automatically given out due to the length of practice. It is not that way at all. The Zen tradition emphasizes Minh Tâm Kiến Tánh, or the ability to see the self-pure mind. For example, in the Sixth Patriarch's Platform Sutra, there was a grand monk named Thành Tú. He was the senior disciple and led most disciples of the Fifth Patriarch. Unfortunately, he could not see his pure mind to become enlightened. In contrast, Huệ Năng was just a regular practitioner who came to the Fifth Patriarch Monastery. In just 8 months, he was enlightened, which led to the passing down of the Patriarch title to Huệ Năng to become the 6th Patriarch. The other religious tradition emphasized the length of how long one has been practicing and hands down the succession to that disciple. But the Zen tradition is different. It is emphasized on the one who has seen one's purest mind. For example, if you now join a Zen monastery, one of the first things that would be done is that the teacher would have a Dharma talk with you to see if you have the mental process or deep understanding to see your pure mind. Once the teacher recognizes that you have the right thoughts and right views, then you would be allowed to enter a room and be in deep meditation to unlock your bondage. The one who successfully saw his pure mind has attained Minh Tâm Kiến Tánh. There are 2 thoughts on this. First, there are those who in many past lives have already practiced and have deep understanding of Buddhist teaching. Once they have an opportunity to be part of the Zen tradition again, they will realize their original mind after further learning and practice. But some might still have habitual energy from past and current lives and need further solitary practices to resolve and clean up this habitual energy. For example, there was a famous monk named Chiu Chiu. Even though he was already enlightened, he noticed that within his mind there were movements and his thoughts were not silent. These thoughts went in and out, rising and falling. He eventually decided to go up into the mountain and practice for 30 more years before he could completely remove or quiet down all the thoughts in his mind. This is an example of a person who practiced and quickly saw his pure mind, but still needed more training for all the accumulated habitual energy to settle down. Now we talk about the people who have a long history of practices. Well, these people have demonstrated discipline and long practices already to calm their habitual energy. Eventually, there will come a point in time when in Samadhi, they will suddenly become enlightened and see their pure mind. They don't need to practice further because they have eliminated all foreign thoughts and attained Buddha state. Their mind is completely quiet, clear and pure. They don't need to practice solitary meditation or solitary training anymore. So in summary, there are 2 types of people who have attained enlightenment. One is the type that suddenly becomes enlightened, but their habitual energy still exists. They must continue to practice to refine and quiet their mind. And there is the other type who have entered the monastery and practiced for a long time to remove their habitual energy. Once their mind is completely quiet, their enlightened mind suddenly blossomed. The secondary group, which gain enlightenment, are called Đại Triệt Ngộ, or completely enlightened, and are an example of a holy practitioner. Now we will continue with the sutra text. Thus I have heard that the Blessed One once stayed in the Lanka castle on the peak of Mount Malaya beside a great ocean. The castle was adorned with flowers and many types of jewelry. He was with a large group of monks and a great number of grand bodhisattvas who had come together from many different Buddha lands. These bodhisattvas possessed the tenfold self-mastery, the 10 powers, and the 6 psychic faculties. They all understood that the objective world was the manifestation of their own heart. They knew how to maintain various forms and apply correct teachings to benefit all beings. They were versed in the 5 dharmas, the 3 svabhavas, the 8 consciousness, and the twofold non-self. As you have heard, the setting of this sermon is at the castle Lanka. There was also another sermon called Nirvana Sutra. When one of his disciples, Ananda, asked the Buddha, "Once you have attained nirvana and the disciples have gathered together to document all the sutras, how should I start?" The Buddha replied, "Since these sutras came from your memory recollections, so at the beginning of each sutra, you have to start with the verse, 'Thus I have heard.' So now you all should realize that the sutras were recollections from memories of the 500 arhats who met after the time the Buddha entered nirvana. Ananda, through his great memory, was the main person who recollected what he had heard and seen. He had a great and clear memory. Whatever he heard from the Buddha himself, he remembered accurately afterward. The Buddha was afraid that in the future, once he had entered nirvana, people will misunderstand and therefore instructed Ananda to always say, 'Thus I have heard,' which implies that the sutra was transcribed through the words of the Buddha and not through him. As a result, in all the Mahayana Sutras and Theravada Sutras in the beginning, you all will always hear, 'Thus I have heard.' The Buddha also said that you have to say, 'Thus I have heard,' and then describe the time and location. Furthermore, you also have to describe the people that were present, the Buddhas, the monks, the bodhisattvas, saints, humans, and non-humans. This way the sutra will become complete and valuable. Now you are all aware of who were at the Lanka castle at the time. The Buddha, holy monks, bodhisattvas, guardian guards, human and non-human figures that gather around Lanka castle at the top of the Himalayas mountain peak. Below are vast ocean as far as the eyes could see. The demons, Yaswa in Vietnamese, resided at this location. There are 3 types of demon beings. The first one is called Phi Thiên Yaswa. They live in the sky and guard the sky. The second type is Phi Đẳng Yaswa. They live on the ocean surface. If anything strange happens on the sea or whichever bodhisattva came by, then these Phi Đẳng Yaswa would report to the demon king, so that he would have enough time to prepare and welcome the guests. The third version of the demon being lives on the mountain. On that day, the Buddha was welcomed by the king, whose name was Labana. He requested the Buddha to come and give a lecture. This sutra was named Langya because the Dharma talk took place at the Lanka castle. This sutra used concepts that originated from the consciousness of body, speech, and mind. This is what we call consciousness study, so we can enter the original mind of the Tathagata. As you have heard, this sutra becomes less popular by the time it reaches the fifth patriarch. Because of the great wisdom needed to understand the sutra, a great understanding of consciousness was needed to follow the meaning of this sutra. By the time it reached the hand of the fifth patriarch, the number of people who were aware of the conscious study was very few. This conscious study is very special because the one who knows it can be aware of his Buddha nature and reach enlightenment. In the Zen tradition, the length of time one has been in the monastery doesn't matter. If you want the patriarch to confirm your enlightened status, then you must demonstrate your understanding in Dharma talks. You must be able to form a haiku, a type of poetry, without thinking. It needs to be spontaneous. If you think, then you already have used your mind to distinguish. You would need to write down a spontaneous short poem to demonstrate you are not dependent on a form or any Dharma. The master would then review your writing and understand what stage of wisdom you possessed. If a blank piece of paper was given to you, and you haphazardly wait to think about the poem that you are going to write, then the master already knows that you have not achieved enlightenment. Enlightened people have a bright mind and could produce instantaneous haiku. If you review the poetry, you will see that it had nothing to do with form. That is the special quality of the enlightened mind. Today, other institutions would try to duplicate this feat. However, they would fail because they would always use their analytical thought to create. If you listen to today's Zen poetry, it is very much dependent on stylistic vocabulary, nothing spontaneous. It is dependent on logical thinking, not the spontaneity of a true Zen master. For example, in the Quy Ngưỡng Monastery, one of the 5 sects that were developed after the 6th patriarch, a monk presented to the patriarch to show that he has become enlightened. He quickly produced the poem saying, "In the past, I was poor, but there was land to raise crops. Today, I am still poor, but there's no land for me to sow." You can see the meaning. In the past, I was poor, but there was land to plant, meaning that I was still stuck on thinking about this, thinking about that, dependent on this, dependent on that. Today, I am poor, but my mind is free. I am not stuck on anything, creating anything, generating anything. This sounds very simple, but it represents a free mind. This is an example that shows Zen master's mind is bright and sharp and not dependent on forms. From the poem, he can tell if that person is stuck on form, stuck on ego, stuck on self, etc. Those who are enlightened are not inhibited, are not under control by anything. If you listen to the poem made by the 6th patriarch, it is really good. Bodhi originally has no trees. The mirror had no stand. Buddha nature is always clean and pure. Where is there room for dust to alight? Do you hear that? It is very good. This mind is already pure and shadow. So what is there to dirty the mind? The one who can say these things are the one who have practiced, who have seen their mind, seen their own Buddha nature. They are not stuck in words. Today you see monks who preach a lot, but their mind are stuck in words. They are stuck in thoughts. That's not how a true mind works. Like a famous, highly trained martial artist, he doesn't have to remember the form, the movement of his arms. He just looks at his opponent's action and automatically knows how to react without any thoughts. This means that the art is within him already. It is second nature to him. Whereas the beginners, whatever they do, they have to think of this, think of that, think what to do and how to react. So in today's world, there are many monks, but their lectures are based on words, on forms and thoughts. They are like karaoke singers who remember and repeat the sound. They are not creators of the songs and therefore not true songwriters. Likewise, you all have to commit to the practice so you can experience the formless, the emptiness, the pure mind, the deep meditation. In today's world, if you practice the Zen art and you have no teacher who is enlightened to guide you, then you will not and cannot master Zen meditation. Because before the first Buddha, Không Dương, came to this Taba world, many people reached enlightenment on their own. But after the first Buddha, anyone who reached enlightenment must have an enlightened teacher to confirm their attainment. Only the enlightened can guide another to be enlightened, and cannot be the blind leading the blind. This traditional process of official recognition of an enlightened student by his master has somehow got lost through time. However, in our monastery, Pháp Nhãn, this practice of official recognition is still being done by our patriarch, who will ask you to present your understanding. The Zen master trained his student like the military trained its soldier. He must be ready for war. The student must constantly practice. This is why there are so many Zen students who have become enlightened. They would achieve enlightenment, but on the exterior, there's no change. There are no differences. In Zen practice, attaining enlightenment is a very big accomplishment. All the practice may have good forms, good methods, but they will require a long time period to achieve. For example, in Zen, in one lifetime, you can reach enlightenment and reach your nirvana. But if you follow, for example, the Pure Land practice, in this lifetime, you cannot reach nirvana. You cannot reach enlightenment. Why? Because once you die, you will be reborn in the Western land or the Western paradise. They have not succeeded in breaking the bondage and reach enlightenment. So you can see the Zen and Pure Land practices are very different. The Pure Land practitioner wishes to be reborn in the Western paradise, so they can listen to the Buddha lectures. But once you are there, the Western paradise is not easy for you to attain enlightenment. It is only a place that temporarily helps people with high moral and high spiritual practice to be there, to learn more about the Dharma. They would listen and practice the Dharmas that Ajita Buddha and the Bodhisattvas over there taught. However, that is not a place for you to achieve and reach nirvana. Therefore, when you follow a practice, you must clearly understand the different practices so you can practice correctly and reach nirvana. You should never practice blindly. you will never succeed in blind faith practice. If you don't have a good teacher and went up to the mountain to practice by yourself, you could be there a lifetime and you still would have practiced blindly. You would not understand anything. This is why in the Zen tradition you must have an enlightened teacher to guide you. If you practice blindly, you will never find the key to enter your original mind. In today's world, many so-called Zen teachers thought they have reached enlightenment. But the problem is no one was there to officially recognize that they are truly enlightened. This is a very difficult task to do. Furthermore, if that person truly has become enlightened and does not go to seek out an enlightened teacher to verify the achievement, then that person is still stuck in his or her ego. He is still just a regular person. He is not liberated. A liberated person has an empty mind who respects all beings in this world, because you must remember, a world without being is a world without Buddha. Buddha came from beings. If there is no beings, then there is no Buddha. Now we return to the Langya Sutra. The monks who were at this palace were high-level monks. Why did the sutra didn't use the word monk but instead use great monks? Because monks are just regular monks and who have not achieved enlightenment yet. You must remember that when the sutra talk about monks, they are talking about regular monks. But if it mentions great monks or Đại Tỳ Kheo, then it is talking about monks who have settled their six senses and reached enlightenment. Besides the great monks, there were also bodhisattvas in attendance. Also, there was no mention of humans and non-humans. Do you know why? It is because this mountain peak was very high up. Those who have not had their six senses clear cannot reach this place. There were also Chư Thiên or saints that have not attained liberation of the sixth sense. But they have a special vision that can take them to this meeting site. This means that these saints could see what was happening at this place. Without the six liberated senses, you will not have the ability to reach the Lanka castle. This is why it was mentioned at the beginning of the sutra that the one who has followed the Buddha to the Langya castle were the great monks and bodhisattvas. The grand bodhisattva have higher training and clearer understanding of the Dharma. They follow the practices and the teachings of the Mahayana tradition. Some people say that, oh, I belong to the Mahayana lineage, but don't understand what the Mahayana Dharma is about. Mahayana practitioner must have a clear understanding of the characteristic of the Dharma. The beginning of the sutra mentioned that these bodhisattvas were thoroughly versed in all dharmas, like the five dharma, the three self-nature, the eight consciousness, and the non-self. As you can see, to understand this sutra, you must have all this knowledge, and that is where the difficulty lies. Without these concepts, it is really difficult to understand the Langya Sutra. But fortunately today, you have me as your teacher to help you, to guide you to understand this sutra. Now, we will begin by trying to understand what are the five dharmas. In the Mahayana tradition, when the bodhisattva meditated upon the body and mind, they must comprehend these dharmas. The first of the five Dharma is called Tâm Pháp. It is the storage mind, subconscious mind, or A Lại Gia Thức. The second is called Sở Hữu Pháp. This one belongs to the seventh consciousness, or Magna Thức, which is the differentiating mind. The ones who practice and were liberated from the seventh consciousness belong to the category of the seventh level Bodhisattva. Magna Thức is like the boss who directs the consciousness to do the work. If you can liberate this consciousness, then your constant differentiating habit will also diminish. It will calm down and open up your intellectual wisdom. You should have a clear understanding of this. The third is called Sắc Pháp. This is your ideas, imagination, or mental projection. The fourth is called Tâm Bất U Hành Pháp. This is for those who do not know how to practice and suppress their thoughts, so that there are no thoughts in their mind. They will live in a world that have no thoughts, which we call Vô Ký. These outsiders practice suppressing their thought so nothing came to their mind. They don't feel anything. In the end, when they die, they will be reborn in a world of no thoughts. A-di-đà Phật. This is why I say, if you truly want to practice and attain wisdom, then you must have an enlightened teacher to help you go from no mind and no thoughts into wisdom and eventually nirvana. The one who practices no thoughts ends up in a world of no thought in his next life. The fifth is called Vô Duy Pháp, which is your original peaceful mind. This mind already exists in you. You don't have to practice anything because it is already there. So, why do we have to practice what we already have? Well, it is because you have not seen this mind. You have not recognized it. If you have seen it and you are immersed in this mind, then there is no difference between practice and non-practice. You are in a meditative state already. A-di-đà Phật. Therefore, when you correctly practicing Zen, your master will show you how to get back into this original blissful state. We have just talked about the five dharmas. Now we will discuss the three pure minds. When you practice, you will see or recognize these five dharmas. At the same time, you will also see the three pure minds slowly opening up to you, coming out from your original mind. There is a vocabulary used in this conscious study, which is called Ý Tha Khởi Tánh. This is a big word, but the meaning of it is very simple. It means that each consciousness opens up to help you see all and become aware of the dharmas happening outside. This represents the first pure mind. The second mind is called Biến Kế Sở Chấp Tánh. This is your thoughts, your imagination, your analysis, your differentiation of the world. This is where you build up your character, your thought analysis. This is the mind that causes much of the disturbance. For example, let's say you were practicing and someone walked by and said that you are worthless. You cannot achieve anything. You are full of anger and greed. Then this second mind will instantly arise. This egotistical mind will differentiate and bring stress to yourself. A-di-đà Phật. This is where the Bodhisattvas and the great monks use their contemplative mind to become aware and realize the reality of things. They would use compassion and tứ vô lượng tâm to resolve the situation. They don't get angry or bring up any negative feelings and emotions. You have to realize that in this life, anyone who is stuck on a Dharma will live in a miserable life. Therefore, you need to learn to let go so you can be liberated. See the truth of the Dharma so you can be at peace. So once you have taken a vow to be a monk, you should only focus on yourself and not focus on what others think or say. You need to be aware of your commitment to your practice, know yourself, and do not let the outside world affect you. If the people defame you, that is their problem. That is their action. They are free to do whatever they want. But as long as you know yourself and know who you are, then what others say doesn't matter. So if you are committed to the practice, then you will learn to forgive others who may have wronged you, defamed you. Then your mind will slowly become at peace. Some monks practice in the mountain, and the master would come up to test them. All the master needs to do is make some type of commotion outside to see if these monks would be agitated, and focus outward and look toward the commotion. The master would automatically know that these monks are not committed to his or her practice. Practitioners should be very aware of this mind, this differentiating mind, this thinking mind, this active mind. It will make you suffer. It will make you give up the practice and commit attachment to the world, and therefore you will continue to be in this world and not liberated when you die. Now we talk about the third original mind. It is called Yuen Thành Thật Tánh. Like I said, this sutra focused deeply on the conscious study. This is why it was difficult for laymen in the fifth patriarch era to comprehend, because they did not possess enough knowledge to study it. They eventually gave it up, and this sutra slowly disappeared. But with today's mind, this conscious study is not that hard. They might use big words, but it is simple. For example, the phrase Yuen Thành Thật Tánh basically means a quiet mind. That is it. So who can attain this quiet mind? It is the one who has Minh Tâm Kiến Tánh, or the enlightened mind. Therefore, when you visit a monastery and the master come out and ask, "What are you doing here?" A-di-đà Phật. You will then think about the question and start to use your intellectual and active mind to answer it. And then the master might ask, "So right now, where is your mind?" A-di-đà Phật. Yes, slowly the master will put you in where your answer is dependent on something. And if you do that, then you have failed. A-di-đà Phật. This is a brilliant way that the Zen master works. The more your mind runs around to look for an intellectual answer, the more you will fail, and the more trouble you will be in. The less the worldly, logical mind, the happier the master will be with your answer. If it is more, then you are using khẩu đầu thiền, meaning you are meditating through your mouth, not your mind. Now, beside the 5 dharmas and 3 original minds, bodhisattvas, when they meditate, they can see their consciousness and what causes disturbances in their mind. So what are these consciousness? There are 8 of them. The first one is eye consciousness, or another word is vision consciousness. This vision consciousness does not exist by itself. It arises through your eyes. It look out and see the world of forms and pull them into your mind, which create this vision consciousness. So if you want your vision consciousness to be at peace, then your eye should not be attached to the worldly form and be stuck in the world of visual dharmas. This is how the monk practices. He might sit in the monastery and do a lot of stuff, but his vision consciousness is at peace. The eye should stop wandering, looking at the world, and be attached to the world. Your 6 faculties are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and thought, combined with the 6 worldly forms, which are the physical, sound, smell, taste, feel, and dharmas. These combinations form the 8 consciousness. So basically, your 6 faculties combined with 6 worldly forms create 8 consciousness. This consciousness does not arise by itself. If you don't combine and attach to them, then you will be at peace. If you want to overcome these 6 consciousness, you do not need to focus on all 6 of them. Just pick one of them and have that be at peace. Then the other 5 will also be at peace. That sounds unreasonable, right? All you need is to focus on one consciousness, and the other will be follow. If you focus on your vision consciousness, after a while, it will be at peace and it will pull all the other consciousness with it to be at peace as well. So you start with your vision consciousness. It will pull the sound consciousness, and then the smell consciousness, the taste consciousness, the touch consciousness, the Dharma consciousness, the intellect consciousness, the 7th consciousness, which we call Magnathức, and finally, the Alayyathức, or the storage consciousness, to be at peace as well. All of this consciousness will be at peace if you just focus on one. So you see, that is very simple. But for someone without a teacher and someone delusional, he will look to the east, the west, the north, the south to find the answer. Little does he know that all you need to do is focus on one of your consciousness. Similarly, in the Tu Lăng Nghiêm or Suragama Sutra, the Buddha also said all you need to do is focus on one of your consciousness, and the others will follow. You don't need to do much, Ayudafa. There were 25 arhats presenting their method of practice. One focused on vision, while another focused on the smell consciousness. For example, Hương Nghiêm Đồng Tử used his sense of smell to know that it came and went and was not real, so that he did not initiate thoughts in his mind, so his smell consciousness was quiet. In summary, there are 8 consciousness: vision, sound, smell, taste, body, thought, differentiating, and storage consciousness. All of this consciousness contribute to the disorientation of all beings in these 3 realms. For the monks, their goal is to evolve this consciousness into wisdom. All who practice, can you differentiate between thought and wisdom? The Buddha himself has preached over 12 volumes of Mahayana Sutras. So do you say that he is full of delusional thoughts? When you are experienced, then you will realize those thoughts came from the outside, whereas wisdom came from the inside. Due to compassionate thoughts of helping all beings, then you will realize that all thoughts are from the inside. Due to compassionate thoughts of helping all beings, then you will realize that all thoughts are from the inside. that wisdom arises. In this modern world, many monks do not know the difference between thoughts and wisdom, because in their mind they are full of delusional thoughts and form. By studying Zen, you will slowly become aware of the differences between wisdom and thoughts. For example, when you listen to a monk lecturing and you think that the lecture is good, but what you don't realize that those are just thoughts, not wisdom. Therefore, in a sentence that was said, a great master right away can tell if that person is on the right path or not. The one who just repeats the words of the sutra to the lecture is just a parrot talking, whereas the one whose words came from deep inside belong to one who has practiced. The great master was very perceptive. When you look at him, you think he is just a normal person, but he is very bright inside. He knows when you are speaking and hiding things from him. You can hide or pretend in front of the normal human being, but you cannot pretend in front of a great master. They walk within your mind. They are aware of your mind. The path that they have traveled are roads that you have not stepped on yet. Why does the Buddha have the 10th understanding, but regular human beings do not? It is because he has practiced in many and countless lives. He often said, in the great Chiliocosm, or Tam Thiên Dak Thiên in Vietnamese, there is no place that did not have his footprints. This means that he has gone before us. He has gone much further than us. Today, if you just initiate your thought, he already knows what you want. A-di-đà Phật. This mind-reading capability is called Tha Tâm Thông. Only belong to these great masters. Any thoughts that you initiate, they will know. This is similar to how a mom loves her children. If the children is hungry, the mom automatically knows. She looked at her child and saw if her children needed to go to the bathroom or not. The great master is like this too. He just looked at an ordinary being and already knows what his intentions are. Even if in front of the master he said, yes, yes. He knows your heart, whether it is evil or not. He knows your path and action because he has gone through it in many lifetimes already. Great masters have traveled through what we are experiencing today. They have transformed themselves from evil to good, from good to the pure mind, from the pure mind to the original mind. Therefore, for those who said, I have never done evil in my life, then you should go and learn the evil acts. Because if you have never done evil acts, eventually you will do evil acts. All beings start from evil and slowly transform themselves into good. Therefore, never say that you have not done any evil acts. A-di-đà Phật. If you have not done any evil acts, then for sure you will not do good. Because evil acts are the start of your journey to become good. Then the good acts lead to chân như, or your pure mind, and then to the original mind, nirvana. Therefore, when you listen to the lecture of Zen Master, you hear the completeness of the lecture, the fullness of the lecture, because Zen teaches you to see yourself clearly, so you can know the way to your destination. So for those who are fortunate enough to enter the Zen practice, you will never again be traveling blindly, but you will be full of wisdom, and will not be deceived by liars and pretenders. But through common courtesy and etiquette, you will not reveal their lies. So for a bodhisattva, when they practice, what do? They practice changing their consciousness into wisdom. You will transform your sixth consciousness of the eyes, ears, mouth, nose, body, and thought to be quiet. And once that happens, your delusional thoughts will dissipate and your wisdom will grow. This wisdom through your sixth consciousness is called Thành Sở Tác Chí. It will be the first wisdom that you would use when you start to lecture the Dharmas for all beings. Now we get to the sixth consciousness, which is your thought consciousness. Most people, when it comes to the thought consciousness, bring the thoughts that originate from outside. This is why it's called wrong thinking. With practice, this consciousness will not take wrong thoughts from outside, but will output thoughts from within. To the experienced layman, it is then not called thoughts anymore, but is known as Diệu Quan Giác Chí. You have to convert the thoughts into wisdom. Now regarding the seventh consciousness, Magna-thức, which is the boss of the mind. It tells the thoughts to differentiate things through the five senses. But if the thought consciousness has been quieted, then Magna-thức could not push it around and become settled as well, and will be known as Bình Đẳng Tác Chí. Do you have a non-differentiating mind? Probably not. You are commoners, so how can you have Bình Đẳng Tánh Chí? When you look at your parents, you still consider them more important than an outsider. When you have attained Bình Đẳng Tánh Chí, then you will see your parents and other humans are equals. No more, no less. Some of you might say, "Oh, I am Bình Đẳng. I don't differentiate things." But when you said that, you were using a commoner's view. When your seventh consciousness, Magna-thức, is truly quiet, then you can truly say that you have Bình Đẳng Tánh Chí. You have to view all beings in a non-differentiating mind. You have to see everyone, outsider as well as insider, as being that deserve your compassion. There is no one higher or lower. A-di-đà Phật. So once Magna-thức or the seventh consciousness has been completely settled, then it will have a ripple effect on the eighth consciousness. You will start to remember the past lives. You will have dreams of seeing the past. You might see yourself as a past monk or king or even a queen or princess. This is where the storage mind, Tạng A-la-ya thức, comes into play. This storage mind contains snapshots of all of your past action. It can contain them all from past eons up until now. Who can unlock Tạng A-la-ya thức? What is the key that can unlock the storage mind? A-di-đà Phật. The key is when Magna-thức has attained Bình Đẳng Tánh Chí. Once that happens, then your storage mind can be opened. How did the Buddha Sakyamuni remember all of his past lives? It is because of his storage mind has been unlocked. If you sit and meditate quietly, some of you might be able to remember a past of long ago suddenly appearing in your mind. This was because you have lived through it and have been stored in your storage mind. Now today, due to your practice, If your thoughts have settled, then there would be nothing to block the source mind from opening itself up, and you can see your memories. Therefore, regarding the 6 unobstructed powers, you might think it is magical, but it is not something strange at all. These 6 clarities came about because the consciousness has all settled down. No more delusion, no more confusion. Whereas the commoners with their minds full of activities and wrong thoughts could not see anything. Do you realize that even when your body becomes sick, in pain and suffering, there is a reason for it? But because you are constantly deluded by the things around you, you cannot see the cause of your suffering on your body and on your mind. Not until death or serious illness come around then you start to realize that you have been blind to the suffering. Whereas with the advanced practitioner, before he dies, he knows and sees clearly what happened. He knows clearly what will happen, and he will also know how much longer his body will last. Commoners know nothing. Death comes whenever it's time. This is because your mind is not quiet to see the reality of things. Each human is truly a treasure with all kinds of powers. You can see that if humans do not have magical power, then how could some outsider do magical things and have the magical ability? Even today's technology, the airplane, the nuclear bomb, all those came from the human imaginative mind. Therefore, we are truly a hidden treasure with all kinds of ability, but we just don't know how to use them. It is because our mind is stuck on the outside world. We became blind and delusional. If your mind becomes at peace, then you will become aware of everything in the 3 realms. Why? Because your mind actually encompasses all the 3 realms. Whatever the saint do, you can sense it. The ones that do not understand this concept live in a mind that is very small. But the one who understands this will know that our mind is the foundation where the 3 realms are built upon. So in summary, the goal of monks practicing is to change this 8 consciousness into great wisdom. Now we talk about the practice of bodhisattvas or the saints. They are aware when their mind is stuck on the Dharma of the world around them. They watched to see if they were holding onto forms, words, or action. These limitations are called Pháp chấp. And there are those who think highly of themselves, think that they are above everyone else. This limitation is called Nhân chấp. Therefore, we have 2 types of clinging, Pháp chấp and Nhân chấp. If you can arise above these 2 inhibitions, then you will become a holy monk. So, what have these holy monks achieved or eliminated? They have eliminated the ego, which was what their magnetic was stuck on. The practitioner can eliminate his ego and doesn't see himself anymore. He has escaped from the binding of this 7th consciousness and become an Arahant or Arhat. If the practitioner can eliminate both the ego as well as being stuck on the forms, words, and action, then that person becomes a bodhisattva. He can reach the 8th level of bodhisattva. Do you see how quickly a Zen layman can achieve if he practiced correctly? For example, if you practice the 10 virtues method, then you can only reach up to the 6th heavenly worlds. The first is Tứ Thiền Vương. The second is Đạo Lợi Thiên Cung, and on up to Đạo Hóa Tự Tại Thiên. That is all. Now, if you want to reach sắc giới, then you must do away with your greed. Plus, you also need to practice meditation to reach samadhi. So you must know what you're doing. Don't practice blindly. In this world, there are many delusional people. When you are deluded, you can easily be misguided and will be stuck in this reincarnation cycle for thousands of lifetimes. Therefore, when you are lucky to have a human form, don't waste your time and do the correct practice. Find a truly enlightened teacher. Only an enlightened teacher can help you become enlightened. If not, and you study under a deluded teacher, then you will continue to be deluded. For example, many people say that the Pure Land is a true practice, and that once you got there is no death. A-di-đà Phật. Let me tell you something so that you can wake up. If A-di-đà Buddha and all the bodhisattvas up there live forever, then why does A-di-đà Buddha eventually have to go into nirvana? Answer me that. A-di-đà Buddha lived for an extremely long time, but eventually his time would come and he would have to go into nirvana. Then Kuan Yin Bodhisattva will ascend to his place. Isn't that correct? Therefore, for those of you who live in this world and wish to go to the Pure Land, the only thing that's better is that you are living next to a living Buddha. And in the meantime, your thoughts have not quieted down. Your habitual energies have still not diminished completely for you to reach nirvana. The proof is that in Pure Land, there are many different levels of beings, from the low to the medium to the high and to the super high level. They all eventually would have to reincarnate back because they all still have karma debt to pay. So you have to choose which is the best for you. If you want a practice so that in one lifetime you can overcome reincarnation and be fully liberated, then you must choose Zen tradition. Whatever I say, I can prove it. I don't say things to be taken blindly. What I hate the most is a lecturer who say things without support. When you claim something, you must have evidence. You must have a true understanding of it. To lie and cheat is something I despise the most. When you say things, you must say for the benefit of all beings, not for yourself. So when the practitioner successfully achieves it, he will realize that everything in the world originates from the mind. Do you see that? Peoples are always deluded. Why do we laugh and cry at the thing that we ourselves generated that is not real? The enlightened one will look back at their deluded action and laugh at their stupidity in suffering over a situation that was not real. It was all within their mind, and yet they laugh and cry over it. It is like watching a movie and you laugh and cry thinking that it was real. Do you know who actually sat and laughed at our actions? It is the evil God who can create the world which we are in. This God created the environment for us to be in and wanted us to be attached to it, suffer with it, be stuck in it. So you cannot rise above this attachment, rise above your deluded mind and be free. Therefore, this evil God When you talk about emotional actions, they love it. But if you talk about peace, peaceful bliss, they don't know anything about it. They created this world for us to be stuck in the emotional playground and keep us here forever. This is why these evil gods have placed great importance in this world, because this is where they get the powers and pleasure. And so, if everyone practices and become liberated, then they will disappear. Their power disappears. So whenever there is a true practitioner who goes around and preaches the liberation philosophy, these evil gods will find a way to disrupt them and block them from spreading the word. Why is that? This is so that nobody can escape from this world, so that these evil gods will have the power and control over all the beings in this world. In this time, a preacher of the true liberating path lives a very simple life. He doesn't need anything for himself. He only wants to help all beings break away from their bondage. But he cannot avoid meeting evil people trying to stop him from spreading the liberating messages. These evildoers are themselves possessed by the evil gods, guiding them to stop the teaching of the truth, so liberation could not take place. Today I say these things so you truly understand. Don't be deluded anymore. Rise above your passion, your emotion, and become liberated from the evil god, so that we are not in their control anymore. You all have suffered long enough, going around and around for eons and eons, laughing and crying and suffering all these times. Such a pitiful existence. So from this Langya Tam Ấn Sutra, we learn that the great monks and saints have practiced for eons, and also have been confirmed by the Buddhas of the 10 directions. A-di-đà Phật. So these Bodhisattvas have been confirmed by the Buddha. So do you think you have been blessed by the Buddha as well? What do you think? A-di-đà Phật. You have been. If you have not, then you would not be able to hear the Mahayana Sutra lectures at all. The people who are hearing the Mahayana Sutra are the one who has been blessed and confirmed by the Buddha of the 10 directions. Do you understand that? The fact that you are hearing these sutras means that you have a karmic connection to the Buddhas and are blessed. If not, you will not listen. You would be blind and deaf to the Mahayana Sutras. You will have no chance. So in this sutra, there is a great bodhisattva named Dai Hui, who stood up for the sake of all beings and asked the Buddha all these wonderful questions so we can learn from the Buddha's teaching. So in the Lanka castle, there was Dai Hui who stood up and asked the Buddha a question. How about in our monastery right now? Is there someone similar to Dai Hui? A-di-đà Phật. There is, right? Dai Hui Bodhisattva represents a being that wants to be liberated from this world. You don't have to look far. Right at this moment, whoever is at peace and not stuck in your thought, then you are Dai Hui Bodhisattva. These are the advanced practitioners of our monastery. Is this right? A-di-đà Phật. These people don't have passions and deluded thoughts. They have no ego and are not stuck on the dharmas. Their mind generate great wisdom and generate the 10 powers of the Bodhisattvas. I have lectured about the 10 powers of the Bodhisattva in other lectures already. If there's a chance later on, I will explain it more. But right now we don't have time. We continue with the next chapter. At that time, the Bhagavan, after 7 days of preaching in the palace of the great Oceanic Dragon King, came out and was greeted by a great number of heavenly beings, including Dragon Kings, Brahma, and Sakras. So, as you can see from the text, before the Buddha came to the Langya castle, he was at the Dragon King palace to lecture to the Dragon Kings and Dragon people. And after 7 days of preaching at the ocean floor, he rose to the surface at Lanka Castle and was met by many hosts, which include the heavenly gods, saints, and many Dragon Kings. Now we continue with the sutra text. Looking at the Lanka Castle, the Bhagavan smiled and said, "The Tathagata of the past were also here discoursing on the Dhamma truth. This can only be realized by inner wisdom and not by knowledge reasoning of the philosophers, as well as the state of consciousness of the voice hearers and conditional awakeners. I too would now, for the sake of Ravana, Lord of the Rakshasas, discourse on this truth." So, once the Buddha came up from the ocean floor to the surface, where at the Langya castle, he was greeted by the saints and non-human guests. A-di-đà Phật. Phi nhân, or non-humans here, does not include the saints. Phi nhân points to the land guardian, Dragon Kings and Yasua, who are the demons in the earth, air, and lower heavens. The Buddha looked around and realized that at this place, the Lanka castle, there were Buddhas of the past who had done lectures and discourses in this very location before. This is not surprising because even in our universe, it is similar to the Lanka castle. After all, in the past there have been many Buddhas who have come to our universe and lectured to all beings. For example, over 2,000 years ago, we received the Buddha named Tianhui from heaven, who came here and eventually became Sakyamuni Buddha himself. So the Lanka castle described in the sutra is not a particular place the Buddha preached to the Yasua, but it symbolizes a place for all worlds that have beings who want to practice the liberation path. This world is like the Lanka castle and needs a Buddha to come and guide us toward freeing ourselves from reincarnation. You can see that he came down from heaven as Tianhui Bodhisattva, but did not retain his power, but still had to go through the suffering of a human life form and learn all the teaching of this world and then evolve. He devoted his life to the practice, became a monk, evolved, and became enlightened. This is the example that all beings need to follow. Through his Dharma lectures, he showed us how to practice and how to become enlightened. He was able to overcome and cross over the vast ocean of delusions. Have you ever heard of any Buddha in the past that has similarly crossed over the ocean of delusion? No. Most people who practiced before the Buddha came along, and the best they could do was to become immortals who can live up to 84,000 years. A-di-đà Phật. Therefore, no one has been able to reach nirvana and attain the Dharma body like our Buddha Sakyamuni. Therefore, his Dharma way is very precious. You can say that he has gone into nirvana. Yes, that's true. But that is only his physical body form. His Dharma body still lingers today in this world because Mahayana Sutra and the teachings still exist. When the day comes where the Mahayana Sutra are no longer available in this world, then you can say that the Buddha's Dharma body has gone into nirvana. The thing that the Buddha has taught us on how to overcome the reincarnation cycle, no other religion has been able to do this. Even the saints like Arhats or conditional awakeners cannot do this. Therefore, the fact that you are sitting here and can listen to the Mahayana Dharma today, so that you are still immersed in the Buddha's Dharma's body. We must then try our best, our very best, to at least in this lifetime to enter the small nirvana. Not the grand nirvana like the one that our Buddha had attained. It is easy to enter a small nirvana. It is very easy. All you have to do is stop discriminating and stop looking outward. Look inward and focus on only one of your senses, like focusing on the sound or the sight, or whichever senses that you think can be easiest for you to become at peace. You will need a teacher for this. You cannot do this on your own or read books. If you don't have an enlightened teacher to guide you, then you are guaranteed to be lost by evil temptation and be misguided. In your journey, you will be tested by evil temptation and influences. If you don't have a strong understanding guided by an enlightened teacher, then they can easily enter your mind and lead you astray and make you a slave forever. If your practice is pure and good, then your aura will slowly become stronger and output stronger. This aura cannot be seen by normal eyes, normal beings, because their minds is too diluted and cannot see the aura. The evil gods from the lower heaven can see this aura, and they will want to test the layman who has achieved. They will bow in front of you and praise you and ask you to become their teacher, or they will find a way to trick this layman into becoming their slaves. Therefore, when you practice without a teacher, it is very dangerous. You will not be able to rise above the evil temptation. So in summary, if you practice without an enlightened teacher, you can easily be defeated and become crazy. The evil god can enter your mind and mislead you and cause you to abandon your practice. They don't want people to not reincarnate back into this world. They want everyone to stay here and become their slaves. It does not matter how smart you are or how many thousands of books you have read. For example, in Vimakat or Vimalakirti Sutra, which I have lectured on, an advanced practitioner was misled by a beautiful presence. He thought the heavenly saint was paying tribute to him for his achievement. He was not aware that it was a test by the evil god. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Today is the first lecture of Kinh Lăng Già Tâm Ấn. I hope you all are a good and devoted practitioner. You should reserve the time to come back and listen to the Dharma. Because when you listen to the Dharma, your mind will mature and your wisdom will further grow and have a complete understanding. If not, you will continue to be stuck in passion and forever flow into this ocean of delusion. You are currently living in a mind that you yourself have created. You should reduce it and stop creating disturbance. Eventually, everyone will perish. We will let go of everything and return to dust. Why do you waste so much energy and effort? You should reserve time for yourself so you can devote yourself to the practice. That is a treasure that only the advanced practitioner understand and reserve this treasure for themselves, the time for themselves, while the lowly student will just waste away in their delusion. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật.